So I'll delve into some of the stuff that I think comes up the most for people over 40. And of course, I really believe that's probably the injury stuff. It's the stuff that I see the most on my BJJ after 40 group is, frankly, people getting injured. And sometimes for me, frankly, it's kind of disheartening sometimes seeing like, man, like people getting hurt doing jujitsu or having like, crazy surgeries and stuff like that. So, we all start this journey, this jujitsu journey to better our lives, to improve our lives, to get in better shape, to learn self defense, to roll, to have fun. The last thing I think that any of us want is to, go through surgeries, go through, any of that stuff. I know for myself, I haven't had like a crazy amount of that, but I had surgery on both my shoulders early on in my jujitsu career and my jujitsu journey, and that definitely has been something for me that you know I've had to adapt my training accordingly. Um, so yeah, so definitely. All right, we got a question here from Ryan. Let's see here. The most beneficial thing that you've added to your training regimen with longevity. And that's from Ryan Ford. The most beneficial thing that I've added to my regimen to help with longevity. And so thinking about like with that, talking about sustainability, what is sustainability? Sustainability for me is how do I satisfy and fulfill my current needs without compromising my future needs. So, sustainability is a big part of that. And that is a big part of longevity is figuring out how am I going to do this, not just today, but tomorrow and in the future as well. So having a good sustainability path or path, but also like a plan for that. But that also includes recovery too. Like you've got to have a plan for recovery. And recovery means like an actual plan for recovery, not just like I'm hurt, so now I'm working on recovery, but actually having an active recovery, an active approach to your recovery, like literally like every day. So for me, I'm 53 years old and actually nearing 54 now in this coming spring. So for me, the equation's like this. Like last night I rolled a bunch and I rolled a bunch the night before too. So today there had to be some recovery. So for recovery for me today was good hydration, getting my supplements down. I got a long soak and a hot bath today, stretching today. So those are all part of my sustainability path. So there has to be some kind of plan for recovery. So thinking about a plan for your recovery, how you're balancing that out. If I'm training one day, what's my recovery going to look like the next day? So having a plan is really like the first step, not just like kind of winging it. Or I think like most people probably don't really do any kind of recovery. It's kind of like stretching, right? Like stretching is amazing for recovery, but it's also going to give you a skill set too. So think about that for a sec. It's a skill set. Like you being more flexible, yeah, you're going to feel better recovering, but your jujitsu is going to be better and you're going to be able to do cooler shit on the mat when you are more flexible. So, for me that's a big skill set and also like a big addition to my plan for longevity, like is just simply like getting on the floor and stretching. And the cool thing about stretching is it's not like you need like a bunch of videos or you need like tutorials or really like a whole lot. Like you could go on YouTube yourself, do a little bit of due diligence, do some research and, see what works for you. And then it's just really like there's no gear, there's no equipment. You don't even need mats. Like you could get down on your floor while you're like watching a movie or listening to music and actually be stretching and working on like gaining like a superpower in your training because that's literally what it's like when you're more flexible. It is like a superpower because, like I said, you can do cooler stuff and you're going to recover better too. So, yeah. Any other questions here tonight? I'm going to sip on my coffee. Well, that's also a good recovery aid, especially when you have kids. I have 4 kids. I have a set of twins and then 2 teenagers. So coffee is a big part of my life. Um, Got to keep that coffee coming. Another question. What aspects of jujitsu do you feel require the most amount of caution when learning or practicing? I think it's, And I think right away the first thing that comes to mind is leg locks, right? Like I think everybody probably is like, well, you got to be careful doing leg locks. And I think that's true. But I also think that it's kind of like, fire, right? Like fire is dangerous. Should we fear fire? Yeah, to a degree, but we should also respect fire, right? Like it's a tool and it can be used for good. Um, Leg locks can also be used for good. It's a fun part of the training, but it has to be, I think, introduced at the appropriate time and in the appropriate way with the appropriate parameters around it. So if we're thinking about leg locks, well, then, maybe there's no like twisting leg locks with the gi on. We all know that's kind of dangerous. So being careful with the leg locks. Being okay that when you are training leg locks that you are okay like verbally tapping out and just like communicating with your partners, your training partners, where you are within the technique. You're not like, waiting until the last second or when it's too late or moving in the wrong direction, and then you're going to get hurt, right? And that's the last thing that any of us want. Nobody wants to be sitting out. We all love jiu-jitsu so much, so we want to stay on the mat. So I think you got to be careful with leg locks, but I love leg locks. It's like my kids. I have, like I said, 4 kids. I have a set of twins and teenagers as well. With all 4 of my kids, we taught them about how to use the stove, like, at a young age. They're not in there cooking when they're 2 years old, but they understand and they respect the dangers of it, but they're not afraid of it either. That's kind of how I look at leg locks. Don't fear them, respect them, but you got to be careful training with them too. Any other awesome questions tonight? Because we want to party on here tonight. Answer some questions. It's 7 after 8 p.m. on the East Coast. I'm in Mountain Time, so for me it's 6 p.m. So that's why I'm still drinking coffee. If it was 8 p.m., I probably wouldn't be drinking coffee. Um, but I like to keep that caffeine coming sometimes, especially when you have kids. And actually I like coffee before training. That's one thing some people ask me about sometimes too. Like, do you drink coffee around training? I like that burst of energy, with my training, and I think the caffeine can be okay. All right, another question tonight here. Um, I do think with recovery, looking at good supplementation. I don't think you have to go crazy with the supplements. For me, it's the trifecta: collagen, krill oil, and a good joint supplement. I love all 3 of those. I use Origin supplements. They do send them to me for free. I would definitely 100% pay for them if I wasn't getting them for free, because I think that they really work pretty awesome. I know that they work because I don't like taking pills, and sometimes I don't take them for a few days, or something happens where I'm not taking them for a few days, and you know, I feel it. I feel it when I'm not taking them. So make sure you are taking your supplements. I think joint supplements for over 40, and really for anybody doing jujitsu, like it's really, really important. So make sure you're getting like the proper supplementation. If you guys have any questions here tonight, we'd love to take your questions. I have a great site for the over 40 crowd. It's called BJJ After 40. We have a YouTube channel. We also have a Instagram site, BJJ After 40, and we also have our BJJ After 40 private group on Facebook too. What is the best joint recovery supplement for use? I got to go with the Origin stuff. I got to go with the Joint Warfare for Origin. And like I said before, I know it's the best stuff because when I don't take it, I feel it. Like I literally feel it. Like their krill oil, their Warfare, and then again collagen. Like collagen, you can pretty much buy like anywhere. But I find like all 3 of those for me are like the trifecta. Like if I didn't take those, I don't know that I could actually be doing jujitsu. So like for me, that's like I've got to take those. Then it's not even just jujitsu. Like you know, adding some weight training as a supplementation for your jiu-jitsu is also really, really important. And again, that's more like, wear and tear and use on your joints. So you have to have some kind of supplementation in there to keep the joints strong and keep everything moving and loose and feeling good. So yeah, I definitely recommend Origin stuff. And all of their stuff is made in the USA. It's great products, and you guys know this, like Origin's great stuff. Pete has a great company going, and Jocko, it's dope stuff. So yeah, definitely check that out. We got about 10 more minutes here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. So if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in there. If not, I'll continue talking here for you guys. I'll talk your ear off. We could talk all night. I love jujitsu, man. Like it is, the best thing in the world. So yes, what has been the worst injury My worst injury in jiu-jitsu. Ooh. You know, it's funny because you like pain's a weird thing. Like you kind of forget like what hurts the most. Um, I'll tell you like the best lesson in an injury, right? And like, and actually probably a pretty painful one too. So a few years ago, I was training for a tournament, and it was a week before the tournament. It was like the last practice. I think it was like a Monday night. It was going to be my last night of rolling. I was a brown belt at the time, and I'm grappling against a purple belt. And there was like 30 seconds left, and the purple belt shoots in for a double leg takedown. He takes me down. I hate being taken down. Like I just don't, not that I'm afraid of being taken down or I don't, I just don't want to be on my back. So he takes me down, he ends up in my guard. I put him in a triangle. He's passing my guard. I'm fighting as hard as I possibly can. And I'm fighting so hard that boom, my rib pops, like dislocate my rib. That shit hurt. Like that was painful. Um, and in a good lesson too, because like, I was out for like 6 months. Like it was a huge pain in the butt. And I got that big crazy rib sticking out thing now. It's kind of like the cauliflower of your ribs in jujitsu, right? The bump that sticks out. That sucked, but there was a great lesson in there. Like me fighting so hard to squeeze a triangle so hard. I squeezed the triangle so hard that I popped my own rib out. So that was a great lesson because it was really kind of a great little ego check like that. Yeah, other people can hurt you in jujitsu, but you can actually hurt yourself. And that to me was like, that had never happened before. It actually never occurred to me that I could hurt myself. I always felt like I could stay out of their danger, and tap if I was in it. But it never occurred to me that I could do something, squeeze something so hard that I could injure myself. And so that was like a great lesson, and a great reminder of keeping that ego in check because, that kind of sucked. All right, we got time for a few more questions. So if anybody's got a question, I would love your questions. It doesn't have to be an over 40 question. And if you aren't over 40, the time that you practice BJJ after 40 is BJJ before 40. You set the tone right now at whatever age you are. If you're 30 years old, 25 years old, if you started actually like stretching now as a young practitioner or younger practitioner, younger than 40, think about what that would mean in your 40s. Or maybe you are in your 40s right now, so starting a good stretching routine in your 40s. What would that mean right now if you did that consistently for the next, month, 2 months, 6 months, 6 years? What would that look like? So, adding that to your training, is you can see I talk about that a lot, flexibility. It's really, really important because that's probably one of the best skill sets that I've added to my training. I'm 53 and almost 54 in my 40s. That really helped me the most is just working on my flexibility. Another question, best advice for white belts who are starting their journey regardless of age. Ooh, I would say a lot of good questions or a lot of good tips for my white belts. Um, make sure you're in the right school first and foremost. Make sure it's the right place for you, regardless of your age. Um, the culture it's going to vary, like depending on where you go. You might go to some schools and it's going to be super competitive, and you're like, yes, I want to do tournaments. That sounds awesome. So you want to be in that environment, or maybe you're in your 40s or 50s and you're like, I don't really want to compete, and I just want to be around people my age and not get smashed by a 20-year-old. So you go into a school that looks and feels like someone your age, other people there your age. So first off, make sure that you're in the right culture, the right environment, because you want to be in a place that you're going to enjoy and have fun, and it's going to be the flavor that you like. And jiu-jitsu is cool because it's like Baskin Robbins. There's 60 flavors, and every school is going to be kind of a little bit different. So if you're in a bigger area, you might have a lot of options with that, but a smaller area, you're probably going to have lesser options. So make sure you have the right environment. Make sure you're tapping early on everything, especially joint locks. Chokes can be dangerous too, so don't ever disregard that a choke is not dangerous. Collapsing your carotid artery over and over and again is not a good thing and could lead to like bad things. But joint injuries can happen really quick, really sudden, and you don't know what's happening. So if you're trapped, tap. That right there is probably the best advice for a white belt. If you're trapped, tap. Like, don't be afraid to tap, even if you're like in a position that maybe there's no perception of danger to your partner, but maybe to you as a new white belt, you're like, shit, I don't know what the hell's going on. So yeah, if you're trapped, tap. All right, we got a question from Joe Gargiano. I don't know if I'm saying your name right. Gi versus no gi school. I'm not sure exactly what your question there is, but I think that that's a matter of flavor for people. Like you have to kind of like find that school for yourself. I like the gi, and I came up as like kind of a no gi guy. Like if you look at a lot of my videos, you see me a lot in a rash guard. But I do train predominantly in the gi, mostly in the gi now. But I like to have like 1 day a week of no gi trainings because I think it's fun and I enjoy like taking off the gi. But I think the technical aspects of the gi are really, really important. I think it's a great way for a beginner to learn. I think gi to no gi is transferable. I think that no gi to gi is not as transferable, like in the sense that like it's hard to go from no gi to gi and make it easy. It's not an easy bridge to cross. It's not impossible though. But I think you got to find the flavor that works best for you. But I do really recommend for a beginner that gi is a great way to start jujitsu. And I think it's probably safer in a lot of ways. There's a lot less, accidents and scrambles and crazy stuff that's happening. But there's definitely, any kind of danger when you're grappling and twisting joints and choking each other. So that's always going to be, a challenge as you practice this art. But always reminding yourself that that is what is happening at the end of the day. We're locking and twisting and cranking on people's joints. So I think ultimately we have to respect that about the path, about the art, because, it does, as much as it is an art, it is martial too, right? The martial aspect, that warlike aspect of it, is the fact that all of these techniques that we practice do lead to death and dismemberment. So we have to respect that about each other, make sure that when we are training, that we are doing it at least in a way that we give each other a chance to escape and tap out. I think that's important. All right. Any last few questions as we kind of wind it down? I'll get here's Carl Neville. He says, I'm a 38-year-old and getting ready to train in Brazil at Nova União headquarters with Master Andre as a purple belt. And he's talking probably about Andre Pedneris. Nova União is a great team. I love Nova União, and I love a lot of great people came out of there. Hobson Morrow was a Nova União guy, and I had a chance to train with him a little bit in the past. Amazing jiu-jitsu person, practitioner. So I have an awesome time at Nova União. That's a great team and a great place to be in Brazil, and to train under like literally like a true legend in Andre Pedneris. I mean, if you got younger guys coming up, you need to look him up. Like he is like, a master of jiu-jitsu for sure. So yeah, check him out, Andre Pedneris. Nova União. Any last few questions? Because we're getting close to that. I was going to say 6:20 because it is in my time, but for you guys on the East Coast, it'll be 8:20. If you have any last few questions here tonight, or I'll give you a little shout out. I see Andrew's on here watching tonight. Andrew Courtney, thank you for coming on with us tonight, friend. My name is Mike Bidwell, and I'm from BJJ After 40. Make sure you check out our social media sites on Instagram, on YouTube, and on Facebook. We have a really cool private group on here too, and it's a great place to post your pictures and answer questions and all that stuff for sure. But if you have any last questions on here, I'd love to take those. Last few tips that I would give you guys as we're kind of wrapping up here tonight. Make sure you have a recovery plan for your training. Like you have to have some kind of recovery path for your training, which includes some type of flexibility training. And when we talk about flexibility, we're talking about movement too. So it's not just like static stretching. So the best time to stretch is anytime there's a floor beneath your feet and you can like get down on the floor and stretch. I think that's a great time to stretch. Last question here. From Carl Neville, what should I do to prevent injuries? So like, here's the tips, right? Like to prevent injuries, tap early on everything, like no ego checks. Like that's something that you can actually control, right? Like if you have safe partners, safe training partners, like no one's going to like tap you out after, crank something after you tap out. Like no ego checks, like tap early, like on everything, and don't even like worry about that. Like, at the end of the day, like if you got hurt like in class because you didn't tap out, you would be so bummed out and so mad at yourself later on, right? So hindsight is 2020, but there's a great lesson there. So, be mindful in your training. Be mindful with your partners too, and not like, not hurting each other when you're training, Get good joint supplements is going to help in injury prevention, and also having a good recovery path and a recovery plan for your training. All right, I guess we're getting about wound down here. And make sure you guys check out my course on BJJ Fanatics. Just look up BJJ After 40. It's a perfect course for like anybody doing jujitsu, whether you're over 40 or under 40. It's the stuff that like can like really slow your partner down. It's a lapel mastery system. So it's all kind of lapel stuff that where you can control people's joints, lock them down, choke them, tap them out. I love this stuff because it's the stuff that I use all the time. It's all been tested and it works. And it's the kind of stuff where you can really slow down those like crazy wiry 20-year-old purple belts or that big strong guy that you always have trouble like controlling them. Everybody always has position before submissions, but what happens when we can't actually like control people in position? So that's what we cover in that course. It's available on BJJ Fanatics, so check it out. Just look up BJJ After 40. Check out my social media sites on Instagram, on Facebook, and on YouTube. It was great chatting with everybody tonight. Have an awesome weekend. Stay safe with your training. Os.